language and culture. So many ways I can go about this. Does anybody here know the epithet that American servicemen use in Iraq for the local population? Where are my veterans?
Hajis.
Haji. Anyone here speak Arabic? No Arabic speakers? Anybody here who knows what Haji actually means?
Someone that's been on a Hajj?
Someone who's made the Hajj, the trip to Mecca. It's one of the 5 pillars of Islam, if I'm correct. Can anyone back me up on that? It's one of the 5 pillars of Islam. And it's a term of respect. We use it as a term of contempt and hatred for the local population. There's so much in terms of confusion. I couldn't pick a better point to illustrate this. American servicemen generally don't understand that point, that the term that they're using against the local Iraqi population as a term of contempt is actually a term of respect within their own culture. Let me see some other points I could illustrate here. We got a 1-hour class on language and culture in Iraq prior to deploying to Iraq. Yeah, 1-hour class. What we did the rest of the time we were training prior to deployment was second-generation warfare. We trained on how to engage targets, on how to destroy enemy personnel and equipment. What we really needed was training on language and culture if we were actually going to win this fight. Now, if you want to get into just war, whether we should have even invaded, there's all kinds of discussions we can have about that. But let's just take the fact that we're there in Iraq. If we were actually in it to win it, the emphasis should have been on language and culture, right? Because your whole point, your whole mission should have been trying to win that mental. I'm actually going to write that up here really quick just because I keep going back to it. These are the 3 levels of war. Physical, the mental, and the moral. The physical is destroying enemy personnel and equipment. The mental is affecting your opponent's perception of the battle space. Intelligence is one way the mental level is affected. Operations that involve speed, shock and awe. The term shock and awe, you hit them so hard that they can never develop an accurate perception of the battle space, what's going on around them. By the time they think they've oriented to what you're doing, you're already doing something else, right? So you're affecting them mentally. And ultimately, these 2 levels are trying to affect the moral level. The moral level is your will to fight, right? So, yeah, language and culture. If our emphasis was going to be on the moral level, which this war is all about, winning the moral level of the war, it should have been focused on winning over the Iraqi population. Instead, we went there and alienated the Iraqi population from nowhere to go. I'll give you an example of this. The 1-hour class we got on Arabic language and culture, we were told you do not look at their women. You don't talk about their women. You don't touch their women under any circumstances. If you need to address one of their women, you find his oldest adult relative and you speak to him without ever looking at him, right? Now, I can remember several times being on a vehicle checkpoint with a driver, a guy named Llewellyn, Lance Corporal Llewellyn, Dirty Lou. He was also our platoon's mechanic. And Llewellyn was a 21-year-old from Tennessee. And he acted like a 21-year-old from Tennessee, right? He was immature. He liked to drink. He loved girls, right? Talked about girls all the time. The problem was, Llewellyn liked to talk about Iraqi girls. Llewellyn liked to talk about Iraqi girls while he was inspecting the vehicles the Iraqi girls were in front of their male relatives. And we used to have to tell Llewellyn frequently to shut the hell up, to stop doing it. And I can remember Llewellyn saying, one time we were on a BCP, telling him to knock it off, quit doing that, and him saying, "Hey, Sergeant Stengel, Hajis don't understand English. It doesn't matter. You know, I can say anything. They don't know what I'm saying." Now, whether or not the Iraqis could understand us, Llewellyn communicated a lot non-verbally. Gestures like this are universal, right? When he points, he's laughing and giggling, right? He's communicating stuff that crosses language barriers. The Iraqi men who were present when he was doing that stuff knew exactly what he was talking about, even if they didn't speak a word of English, right? Llewellyn was recruiting for the insurgency every day he was using technology. Another incident, that assumption that Llewellyn men took. We could not speak Arabic. We hired translators. In our area, we were in a Sunni area, so we employed Shia translators. Generally, transplants from Baghdad to translate for us. We were constantly in situations where we were surrounded by Iraqis that we could not understand. And the general assumption, I think, was that they couldn't understand us either. I remember being on a vehicle checkpoint with my loader, Estrada, and we came across a vehicle 2 days in a row. And this vehicle, there were two older gentlemen and a young man, probably 16, 17 years old. Now, try to imagine for a second you leave campus tonight. Put yourself in that situation I talked about before, where we've been occupied, a foreign country here. And you start driving off campus and you look down the road and there are armored vehicles blocking the road and they've stopped traffic. And you start thinking, are my papers in order? Are they looking for someone who matches my description? Are they looking for a vehicle that matches my description? Are these Marines wired because an IED just went off and they're pissed and they want somebody to punish? Right? Whether or not it was me or my family that had anything to do with the insurgency at all. How are we going to get treated? Am I going to get dragged out of this vehicle and get my ass kicked? Is my family going to get shot? The Iraqis coming into our vehicle checkpoints behaved a certain way, and it was very nervous, typically, and deferential. They complied with our orders 90% of the time, and they almost never made eye contact. But on this particular vehicle checkpoint, the two older gentlemen went about it the way we were used to, but the kid was staring at us. The kid was staring at us, and he was staring at us hard. He was pissed, he was angry. It was obvious. We didn't know why, but the whole time he's getting out of the vehicle, he's walking with his shoulders back and his chest out. He's looking at us in the eyes, and he's making a point to move slowly, and making a point that he's hostile, right? And we noted it, Estrada and I, we did our vehicle search. We didn't find anything on the Iraqi men or in their vehicle, so we let them pass through. Now the next day we come back through again, and this kid gets out of the vehicle and he's behaving the same way. And Estrada says something about, "Hey, isn't this the kid that was mad dogging us yesterday?" And I said, "Yeah, I think it is." He goes, "You want us to get the lieutenant?" And he goes, "This is weird. This kid's not acting the way people normally act in vehicle checkpoint. Should we tell somebody about this?" And all of a sudden, his father turns to us and starts speaking in English, saying, "We're running late for work. I'm sorry, we're a little stressed. These vehicle checkpoints really slow us down." He's talking a mile a minute, right? He's obviously just heard us talking about his son and talking about detaining his son, interrogating his son, and he's trying to get us to think about anything else. He's trying to get us to talk about something else. How long have we been here? What's been going on today? And at some point, he turns to his son and says something in Arabic, and I can only assume he was telling him to knock it off, because immediately the kid's eyes dropped to the deck. He was still obviously pissed, but the kid's looking at the ground. And he didn't make eye contact with us for the rest of the time. But it goes back to that thing that Llewellyn said. Hajis don't speak English. And that assumption was made 90% of the time,